YouTube channel, Roaming with the MUX. In this channel, I'm going to document building a 2018 Isuzu MU-X, a 4x2. Before I get stuck into that and why I chose a 4x2 over a 4x4, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown as to where my passion started with cars and where my knowledge and experience is when it comes to working with cars. So I'm going to play some pictures and do a bit of a voiceover. Hopefully my editing skills will kick in and you'll be able to get a little bit of an understanding of where I started and where I am now.
All right, so this was my first car. It was a 1991 Nissan Silvia S13 SR20. It was an automatic with about 270,000 kilometers on the clock. This car was completely unroadworthy. I had a lot of issues, but I needed to get this car running pretty quickly as I needed to get to work and uni and things like that. So I engaged with the mechanic who did the manual conversion for me and put in a S15 and a SR20 into it. The next step was just to get the bodywork right. Now, the car was straight. There was no issues there. So I opted for a Vertex body kit and I got that put on and resprayed, and the car started to look the part, looked a lot more cleaner and a little bit more presentable to drive on the roads. So the next step was just to do a little bit of interior work. I changed the front seats over to the S15 All-Tech blue seats, which were pretty rare at the time. And then just focused on keeping a very stock interior. I wasn't too phased by it. The one great thing about that car was that it came with a dash that wasn't cracked. And for the people who own those cars, you know that those were just, every car came with a dash crack. So I was very fortunate all the way to the end to hold that car without any dash cracks. All right, so being on your P plates in Melbourne, Australia, you're not allowed to drive a turbo car. So this car was a non-turbo, and I had a decision to make as to what I was going to do with this car. You get bagged out a lot when you're driving a non-turbo car, but at the same time, it's not worth being done by the police and losing a license and all that. So one of the things I really focused on over the next 3 years was suspension and suspension geometry of this car. I ripped apart everything underneath this car and replaced it with complete adjustable arms. I had raised the rear subframe up, all the rear lower control arms, toe arms, drive shafts were all replaced. So the rear end was an R33 GTST rear end with the to accommodate the 5-stud conversion, and the front end was a S15 hub. So they accommodate the 5-stud at the front, but all the arms underneath were all adjustable. So I think by the end of it, I was running about just under 1 degree of camber at the rear, and at the front, I was running about -4, which is really the perfect setup for this car, especially if you wanted to slide it around or whatever. But at the power that I had at the time, it was overkill, but it was leading up to building the perfect car when I was going to drop a turbo engine into it. So I think suspension geometry was a huge thing about this car. It took a long time to get it right, but it was ultimately one of the best handling cars on the roads. I would have spent in excess of about $10,000 to $12,000 just on the car underneath. All right, so as the years went by, I managed to hold on to my license without losing it. And guess what? We finally got to my full license. And by that time, I had saved up enough money to do the turbo conversion on this car. So I had this engine pulled out, a fully rebuilt motor, pushing close to 230 kilowatts at the wheels. This car was really torquey. It was really responsive. I was not chasing numbers. I wanted a car that was very, very responsive. And to be like, I still remember I was smashing close to 270, 300 kilowatt cars up the line. This had no lag. It was a 2871R turbo with HKS cams in it, an Apexy Power FC, a really well-built cooling system as well. So it wasn't about chasing the numbers. It was really about responsiveness, and it was a light car. By the end of it, when you remove all the stock arms and the sound deadening and all that, this car was a very lightweight car. And yeah, I ended up having 18x10 Workmeisters on them, and this thing was just phenomenal when the engine got put in. So whilst having the turbo engine in there, I also kind of changed the look of this car just a little bit. I still retained the Vertex body kit, but I put on the front wide fenders. The side skirts were just the wide ones, the bolt-on rear wide fenders just to accommodate the wheels. I had 18x10s at the rear, 18x9.5s at the front. So they were really, really fat wheels, but it just looked like an absolute pig of a car. It was just a really wide drift looking car. And I used to slide it around. I used to bang it up against a couple of other cars and sometimes up against the the edge of the gutters. But it was a fun car to drive. It was a pretty mean looking car. I mean, it was very fat looking. I mean, it grabbed a lot of attention, a lot of unwanted attention. As you can see, I got pulled over by the police multiple times, defected so many times, which it just becomes a hassle. I reckon I would have spent probably close to $2,500, $3,000 on fines, paying back defect fines and things like that. I don't regret it, but it is the price you pay for a highly modified car, especially a car like that. Yeah, it was really frustrating, but I guess when you're young, you don't really think about these things. You just kind of do it and you deal with it. All right, so I don't really have any pictures, but during the course of owning that car, I actually ended up stacking it, sliding around, and I was so disheartened. I mean, the body was fine. I mean, structurally it was fine, but the front end was the front bar was cooked. I actually ripped apart the wheels. A bit of suspension got damaged, and yeah, I was heartbroken. It was the first accident I had in that car, and I decided to make a decision as to what I was going to do with it. And I was planning on getting rid of it for what it was worth. And then I had a few good friends of mine at the time that said, look, maybe it's just time to give it a break and see what you can do and rebuild the car again. And so I decided to rebuild the exterior of the car. The engine and the suspension were fine. It was just the exterior was just looking really crap after all these years. So long story short, I ended up bringing it back to the factory look. I got all the factory front bars, the side skirts, the rear bar was all plastic. I got DT panels at the time at Springwell, which were highly regarded, to respray the car to the factory color. And it was one of the best things I ever did. By the end of it, this car looked the best it's ever looked in the 10 years that I've owned it. And I will always look at that car and think to myself that that was one of the best things I ever did, was not selling it, just biting the tongue and spending that bit of extra money to bring it back to the factory look. And it was nice. It was such a nice car by the end of it. It really was. All right, so all while owning that S13, I thought, how can I go and piss off my parents a little bit more? And so I went and bought another S13. I picked this one up for $750. The same thing, was an automatic, non-turbo SR20, but this car, I did all the work myself. In the other car, I was a bit of both. My mechanic did some of the work or most of the work, and I did a bit of work. But in this car, it was 100% me. So the first thing I did was just jack this thing up, and I had stripped this car completely right back. I pulled the engine out, pulled out all the wiring. I stripped the interior completely, pulled out the suspension, the subframe, the steering rack, and started from scratch. So this was a really big job. Pulling this engine out wasn't that difficult. It's, for the people who know this car, it really isn't that difficult. But it was such a great learning experience. I ended up doing a lot of work to this car, similar to what I did in the other S13 in terms of suspension and the 5-stud conversion. And I brought this car back to the ground, similar setup to what I had previously. All right, something else that I did really different in this car, and I will forever be cocky about this and very proud about this, but I was one of the very few people in Australia that did an S15 dash conversion into an S13. There was very, very minimal information on this, except a couple of things on the forum, but I managed to fit that dash in and get everything wired up except for the cluster speedo. And it was definitely a iconic moment for this car because nobody else had done this. And to have a 2002 S15 dash into a 1991 car was almost unheard of. But I opened up a can of worms because I had so much messages on my on the forum at the time asking me what I needed to do and how to do it. And I tried to do a write-up at the time, but I never did. And I kind of regret it. And so I hope if I ever got a chance to do it again, I really would do it again. Because yeah, I love doing that part. That was probably one of the best mods I ever did. All right, so the next part of that project was to get the bodywork right. There was a lot of dents in this car, really small dents, and it needed to be resprayed and a lot of things done to it. But I was very fortunate to help the panel beater. He gave me an opportunity to get in the workshop and sand it, and he said he wouldn't pay me anything and I didn't want anything for it. I just wanted to learn, and you really do appreciate the work that these panel beaters put into respraying a car, and definitely an experience that I really enjoyed. And it was somewhat rewarding by the end of it when the car was sprayed, that I felt like I had a little bit of input into getting that body straight again. So yeah, I just resprayed it black. It was just a factory black color. It wasn't nothing too special. All right, so unfortunately, I don't have any more pictures of that black S13, but I ended up selling it as a rolling shell for about $4,500 after spending probably two and a half. I wasn't after any big money, but a guy came down from Queensland and purchased that black S13, and he put a 2JZ engine into it, which was just another phenomenal thing to do at the time. And during COVID, I saw that car up for sale on carsales.com, and I called him and I had a great chat to him, and he offered to sell it back to me for about 28,000, but I said I had to decline, and he had a little child on the way, so he wanted to get rid of it. But it was great to see that he actually finished the car off for me, and even better, he put a Toyota Supra 2JZ engine into it. So I also ended up selling this S13 as well, the first one. I decided to part ways with it. As you get older, you kind of slowly get over it, and it just wasn't fit for purpose anymore. Getting defected and paying fines was just getting lame. I don't regret selling that car. I miss it. I miss driving those cars, but I certainly don't regret it. I've also owned a 2012 Subaru WRX, which I did no work to, and a Lexus IS 250. I held on to this for about 8 years before I cooked it, which leads me into the car that I have now, which is a 2018 Isuzu MU-X.
All right, so I hope you kind of enjoyed the background of where I've spent most of my early 20s to late 20s in terms of working on cars. So this is a completely different car, a completely different ballpark, but this car is more suited for the lifestyle that I'm currently living and the lifestyle that we want to live. I have a big dog which I need to accommodate for, and I also needed a car that is reliable and probably not too much of a cop bait. So in this channel, as I said at the start, I'm gonna teach you how to do some mods to this car, but also basic servicing and how to maintain a diesel engine in order to give it a little bit more longevity and reliability. With diesel engines, it's really important to stay on top of it because carbon buildup is a huge thing, and you can still run into certain problems down the track if you don't do certain things. So in this series and in the videos that are coming up, I will slowly but steadily show you how to do some sort of preventative maintenance. Now you're probably wondering why I chose a 4x2 over a 4x4. So first and foremost, purely because of cost. I just wasn't in a position, or I'm just not in a position to spend $50,000 to $60,000 on a car. And I never wanted to, it's never been my thing. And for what I want to do in terms of off-roading, a 4x2 is more than sufficient. You don't need a 4x4 to do off-roading. You just need to be able to set the car up properly in terms of the weight distribution and also certain mechanical aspects of the car. So in terms of what I want to do with this car, you're going to find that there's going to be a really nice balance between suspension and power, and also the ability to tow. So this car has a standard towing capacity of I think up to 3-ton braking capacity. But if you're going to tow for long periods of time, or you want to hit something on the back of it, the aim of it is to actually take away the stress. So yes, it's got a great towing capacity, but what can I do more that will make it so much more easier for the car? So during the course of all the videos that come up, we'll go through in-depth things, and we'll go from there. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. This is all really new to me. I'm yet to learn how to edit and post videos. I've never done this before, and I really want to articulate these videos in a way that you can go back and do the work on the car, on your car as well. So I hope you guys stick around. I've already bought something for the car to put on, so the next video will be the first little mod upgrade or whatever you want to call it, and I'll take you through that. But thank you for watching.